Anish Kapoor bought the proprietary rights for it and refuses to let anybody work with it as a paint pigment. And so some other...
What for? Like, what's
just
the
to be an asshole. I don't know. I don't know what his logic is.
He's a rich asshole.
I kind of think that's funny, though.
He's also an artist, if I remember correctly.
So I think he wanted to be the only one who could use that specific like pigment to get the blackest black.
Yeah.
And so he bought the proprietary rights to use it as a paint pigment. So I forget who the other guy's name was, but he developed his own like knockoff called Black 2.0 that wasn't as black as Vanta Black, but it still did the same thing where it absorbed like a shit ton of light.
Yeah, it was like 0.001% difference.
Yeah.
Of how much
and it was like
absorbed.
Vanta Black is like made with a shit ton of chemicals and it's not safe to handle.
Yeah.
Whereas Black 2.0 is, I think it's like non-toxic or something.
Yeah, it's non-toxic.
Oh, that's
cool. I think it's a full acrylic.
Yeah. So he released it with the stipulation that everybody in the world could use it if they buy the pigment, except for Anish Kapoor. If you buy it, you have to prove that you are not him or associated with him in any way, and then he'll sell it to you.
Yeah, they did this. He did the same thing with the Pink is Pink.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that Anish Kapoor guy cannot buy any of his paints.
But I mean,
and he's got like, I think now he's got like the goldest gold.
The white. It's the white that matters. I mean, that's the stuff that apparently it's so reflective that you could paint a building in it and it like mitigates the whole need for an HVAC. Well, not an HVAC, an AC.
It alleviates a lot of it. I know.
But black, I mean.
God, what was that? Who came out with that whitest white just a few days ago?
Oh, hang on.
They were comparing it to a Sherwin-Williams product. But yeah, it lowered painting the roof and the building with it lowered the internal temperatures by 5 degrees, I believe.
That was just a couple days ago? Because I know the one I was talking about came out like a couple. Well, I read about it a couple months ago.
Well, and it might have been. I just might have stumbled across the article about a couple weeks ago.
The blackest black, like
And I know historically they've done that with buildings before, where they just paint white of any color, any variation of white on the surface to help reflect the heat, the light and heat.
Yeah, it's paint. You get into a lot of interesting topics with paint.
Purdue University engineers. They have created the whitest paint yet.
Yeah.
Coating buildings with this paint may one day cool them off to reduce the need for air conditioning.
I'm surprised, like, we live in this era and the cancel culture hasn't, like, jumped the fuck all over that yet.
They probably will.
Okay.
Eventually. It'll be a few years from now whenever they actually hear about it. But then,
because they actually have to read, right? Oh, yeah.
Eventually they'll jump all over brain surgeons because they're, using German.
I'm telling you, the guy who invented the transistor, I mean, he was a very devout racist. I mean, he used to give lectures on why Native Americans were inferior to, Caucasian people. But, I mean, you don't see them, like, hurtling their phones into the river.
Yeah, they tried to do that shit with Orson Scott Card, and then until they figured out that he just does not give a fuck about them. Even though he is a bigoted asshole, he still writes a damn good book.
Yeah, that's the end. I mean... It's a fun conversation, I think. Definitely that. Do you remember one of the earlier Netflix Dave Chappelle stand-ups where he was talking about like did he save more than he raped?
Yeah,
and it's like God, that's a painful conversation.
And they're even going after Dave Chappelle now.
They did his last special and then his more recent special. The past couple they've hated on him, but he's like, I don't care. Twitter's not a real place.
Turned around and said we're not taking it down.
Yeah.
And they're actually standing up to cancel culture because it is Dave Chappelle.
It's about time.
If it was anybody else, I think they probably would have taken it down because Dave Chappelle has had such a good relationship with Netflix. And honestly, the the whole point that I find interesting is that he's not actually making fun of trans people in any way or anything like that. And he actually consulted with one of his friends who is trans, and they recently had passed away. But everybody's always out to, well, that's not how it works. Well, no, science says this is how it works, and the way you're approaching is from an identity perspective instead of what he's been saying all along, which is what a lot of people are saying.
Everything is based on what's convenient for them.
Right.
Are you famous?
Am I
then
famous?
Fuck you.
I could be.
We will fucking ruin you.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Anyways.
Yeah.
No comment.
Welcome back to Maximum Dakka, guys.
Oh, good. We're recording. Yeah. Well,
that's
cool.
that's become a staple now.
We didn't say anything that was bad.
I don't think so.
I hope not.
Anyways, I am joined tonight by...
Hi, my name is Will.
Hi, I'm Cal.
Once again, I am still Phil.
Are you sure about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I thought your name was Dave.
We can change our names.
Do you want to? What's wrong with Caleb?
Can I be Chad?
Under the name card.
Total Chad over there.
No,
I do have a legal alias.
I mean,
do you really?
You can change your name as long as it's to Kyle.
Hold on. Chad, hold on. I want to go back to this legal alias real quick.
Okay, so at one point I worked in a theater department as a receptionist, and one of the girls that was part of our class, she came out one day and she's like, "I don't like your name," and I was like, "Shit, that sucks. Don't know what to do about it." She goes, "I'm gonna change it." So she leaves and she comes back. She's an art student, so I was like, "Okay, well, who knows what that's gonna come up with."
Let this happen.
Super nice girl, but she came back with a physical nameplate, and she's like, "This is your name now," and on it says, "Oh my gosh, what is it? Gregor Welsh." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so, over the next year, that's how everybody got to know me. My name was Gregor. Until one day, I got a paycheck in that name. And there had to be some questions asked because I went to the person who made up the checks and I said, "You realize that's not my name?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, you put it in my name."
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, shit." And so because I had received official payment in that form, I couldn't cash it, obviously. I couldn't do anything with it, so I had to give it back to them. And they had to print me a new check. But because attempted payment was there, I have to legally put on forms that I have an alias. So...
all because of an art student.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Fucking art students.
They're the cause of all the problems.
Chad, go right ahead.
Your life is an art exhibit at this point. You know that's what that means,
oh,
right?
yeah. It is.
There you go.
100%. But...
So, funny story along those same lines. When I was when I was about 16, I got pulled over for,
You don't have to admit it.
Yeah, that's not really the point.
This is going on the internet. Just keep it to yourself, bud.
Anyways, there's a new cop in the town, and they didn't know who the hell I was. So I told him my name was Richard Pulse. And whenever they ran my security clearance, I forgot to put that on there. Mm-hmm. And that was one of their interrogation. One of their questions was, "Did you used to go by the name Richard Pulse?" And I had to think about it for a while. I was like, wait.
Oh, that's great.
I may or may not have been intoxicated while that happened. But anyways.
So it's okay. Statute of limitations. Don't worry about it.
You were Dick Pulls.
Yes. Yeah. Had to put that on my
your paperwork.
Government paperwork. Anyways, Kyle.
I thought it was Chad.
I don't like this game anymore.
Neither do I.
Imagine though if you had to put down every character name from D&D you've ever had to use for an alias. And I'm just now thinking about one of yours.
His name is pronounced a shot, but it's spelled asshat.
Yeah, it's my favorite halfling barbarian with who didn't use regular conventional weapons, but
I was a spiked gauntlet.
Oh no!
So we could
and my nickname was Cock Puncher, or no, Cock Knocker. Excuse me.
Asshat Cock Knocker.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You joke about a halfling barbarian, but when his name's Cock Knocker and he has a spiked gauntlet and he's running to you, you have some second thoughts about that fight.
Get over here! I'll punch you in your fucking dick.
Is that a line you used quite frequently?
No, it wasn't. It was mainly just wild screaming and immediately punching the dick.
Those good times.
Ruined many of men's livelihood.
Just a few.
Yeah. Anyways, Caleb over there.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight you wanted to talk A little bit.
Yeah, I actually had a topic that I actually wanted to bring up for once. It's new for our
Instead
show.
of dick punching.
So,
aliases.
Will, you've been playing Metroid Dread.
We need to. I don't know if we should go into this. I mean, I remember where the Discord led to. I mean,
there are people at this table who know who they are, who don't need to be shamed again. James,
It's me.
It's James.
Yeah, dude, you really escalated that.
You can't.
It
you can't
escalated
shame
very
me,
quickly.
Okay?
Yeah.
You cannot. Yeah, you can't shame.
It's like it's gonna go this far. I'm just gonna fucking save us all 20 days and just.
Yeah. Metroid Dread came out and we're not going to talk about spoilers because it came out like a week ago, and so we're not going to talk about spoilers, but we are going to talk about it briefly, just a little bit.
Is this the one for Switch?
It's the one for the Switch. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So first new 2D Metroid in like what 2 decades?
I don't think it's been that. It's been like 15 years.
Wait,
like
2D is in like the old
like
school,
side scroll. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's fucking awesome.
Because the last one was Metroid Fusion. God, I played the shit
for the
out
Game
of
Boy Advance. Yeah.
As far as new story, they did have newer ones for.
They had Metroid Samus Returns, which was a remake for the 3DS of the old number 2 for the Game Boy, like the OG Game Boy.
Yeah.
But this is the first new story that we've had that advances the actual plot and doesn't just take place in between games like Prime. The Prime series is all after 2 and before.
I think it's after 1 and before 2.
It's something like that. It's somewhere. It's in between games.
Prime was 64. Wasn't the Prime
GameCube.
series on 64? GameCube.
GameCube, and
there did not exist a Metroid game for the 64, unless you count Smash Bros, which I don't.
No, I don't think you can. Which is still a great game though.
I can
was
because
there a
I
Metroid
made
game for the Wii?
Samus back then.
Yeah, Metroid Prime 3. Yeah.
Which
And
a lot of people say was the weakest of the series, but I thought it was so good.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing it was the only one for the Wii because it was a pretty weak one. I'm sure if they put another one on the Wii, it would have been really bad.
Weak.
So,
sorry.
WIIK.
Weak.
I was just going through my brains. It's like a Samus workout instructional video. That's where my brain went.
The Wii Fit trainer, but it's
you
Samus
only work
instead.
a very consolidated group of muscles, though, don't you?
Yeah.
Just one arm.
Like the guy from Lady was it Lady of the Lake or what was that? What was the name of that Shyamalan movie?
Oh,
the girl
Lady in the Water.
Lady in the Water.
Or something
Was
like
that it?
The guy who has like the really big right arm or some shit.
I was just quagmiring.
One rule. Yeah. I had one rule.
Yeah, well, I don't like rules.
For context, we were talking about this a little bit in the podcast, and we were not the podcast, the Discord, about like what are we going to talk about on the podcast. And so I brought up like Metroid Dread came out. I think it'd be loosely relevant and sci-fi enough to talk about. And I think it was like maybe 5 minutes, and me and Will were talking about Samus is kind of like an elemental in her own right because she's a bioengineer. Yeah, she's a genetically engineered 6 foot tall superwoman with a suit of armor. And then I think the exact words from James were the only thing genetically engineered about this woman is dad ass, and then a picture that I really don't think we should talk about.
You heard the rails just go da-ding, da-ding, and then it's free flowing train from there.
Yeah, that's what I do. To be fair, I had not been paying attention to that conversation, and that was the first thing that came.
You saw Samus, and
you
were like,
I was like, yeah.
I have nothing else to add, so.
Felt like that was like a desperate attempt to get in on the conversation right there.
No, it was just a desperate attempt to derail it. It's really all it ever is.
It doesn't take much.
It really doesn't.
Mm-mm.
So,
but Metroid games are something that I've rarely ever played. I think I've played one for the Super Nintendo.
NES was the first and only one I've ever played.
The original NES one was a bitch.
Yeah.
Because it suffered from what a lot of those old NES games had, where in order to make them, last a really long time, you just make them so that they grind your nuts into the ground with difficulty.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like if you ever played the original Zelda for the NES, it's bad. Not bad. It's great, but it's tough.
It's great in a classical sense.
Oh yeah.
It's great in the we're the generation that grew up without the internet sense.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's really just ball busting.
Yeah.
It's like how do we get people to pay $60, $70 for a game back in the 80s.
I'm fairly certain I saw what you
Let's just make it extremely difficult and impossible to beat.
Unless you really dug your heels in.
Unless you,
Yeah. So
that one was actually pretty good.
Thanks. I'm really holding it in right now. It's just like...
Just let it out!
I will say... now is a very interesting time to get into the Metroid franchise. They've made a lot of... Nintendo handed off development of the last two games, the remake for the 3DS, and then this new one, to a new company called Mercury Steam. Is that it? They operate out of Spain, I think.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure that's it. Whereas, like, if you've ever played like Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion, it's all about... carefully positioning yourself to take advantage of the fact that you can aim straight up and at 45 degrees and tactfully jumping around to dodge things. And it's really an exercise in very floaty jumping mechanics and ranged combat. Whereas these new ones introduce a lot of stuff that have you parkouring through obstacles and melee countering and counterattacking and everything, and it's much more fast-paced. I know it's very cliche.
It's much more fluid, very free form, and I will say probably a little more anime-esque.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
As far as like how the combat is and everything like that, and especially minor, not even quite spoiler, there's cinematics in it, which is not usual for the side-scrolling Metroid games, but it helps convey the story.
I'll say of what I have seen of it, and I don't consider this a spoiler by any means, but some of it goes very into those animations where you're doing something specific and it triggers like a micro cutscene of you running straight up a wall in order to get to a new area, and there were some very interesting things, and I'm glad that they're moving this direction, because those of you who've talked to me about it, I very much dislike Nintendo and the way they have run their company for the last 25 years.
We're getting sued now. Original content and re-releasing things that have already been done, like Star Fox.
Well,
I would kill for another Star Fox game.
I would kill for a brand.
It's okay. You can just pay $50 a year for it.
To your point, though, what I was gonna talk about after they were through talking, but I'll just get into it now, was I know nothing about Metroid. Like I said, I've only played the one. But what I find really fucking interesting about that game is, one, it's already been successful, and two, Nintendo killed that project 3 years ago because it was being developed by somebody else and it just was not working. They totally they were like, nope, fuck this. It had been in development.
And that one was a direct sequel to Metroid Hunters.
Are you talking about... well, no, they redid Metroid Prime. The upcoming Metroid Prime 4 is the one that they outright said, nope, we're starting from scratch with a completely new company because we don't think this is going the direction we wanted. That was Metroid Prime 4. Dread was something that they were working on, and they sidelined. They didn't cancel it. They just sidelined it for the longest time.
The reason Dread was a huge deal, I grew up like in middle school and I played Metroid Fusion, and it was my first introduction to the Metroid series, which a lot of people will tell you is it's probably a bad game to get into the series with, because there's a lot of mechanics of how that game works that's very antithetical to like what a lot of people would consider very important. It was very railroady instead of like this massive open world that you can just get very isolated and lost in. So in that sense, Dread is really a return to form, because holy shit, I got lost a couple of times in there. But shit, where was I going with that? I don't know. What were we talking about? Thanks.
But what I was trying to get to the point of was, it kind of just shows that I don't need you to spend $1 billion on this video game and spend 12 years developing a fucking battle royale to have a successful game. You can spend 3 years with a brand new company on a minimum budget and be successful and give the players a game that they fucking want, not a game you think they want. Because of
trends, basically.
And you've got a board of directors that have never picked up a goddamn controller in their life. They're like, but we want a battle royale because that's what made this company money. And it's retarded.
That again goes back to a group chat that we had, not on the Discord, but just like
in general.
where we were talking about how games and the game atmosphere has become so corporatized with how they make games, and it's literally just a money-making process now. There's no heart and soul in the big companies. What they do is they basically just buy up these smaller companies and these like indie companies and things like that have original, unique ideas. They make games with them until they've squeezed every bit of originality and money making out of them, and then they toss them to the side.
Not saying any names here, Microsoft.
That's what happened to Cyberpunk 2077.
EA,
you
Activision.
can see the game underneath there that they wanted to make. It's there. Like if you get past all the bugs and all of the drama and all the bullshit that came out, that is a fucking good game.
It's if you go back to it today, where they've had a lot of time to fix a lot of that game is phenomenal. I started playing again, and it's fantastic. My annoyance with Nintendo is that they ride the nostalgia train so hard that their marketing isn't directed toward direct children anymore. It's directed to the people that grew up with it and needed it in the 80s and 90s. I'm sorry, but unpopular opinion, I hate Mario games now because they're
that's fair. Yeah.
That's a fair point.
They're the same thing, and I understand what every game that's come out from the 90s for Mario, it's all the same game, right? You just change the background, but none of the mechanics change, right? They'd add in one or two things
I
here.
think the most successful ones, the mechanics are basically the same, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like everybody remembers Super Mario Brothers because that was like the original, everybody remembers Yoshi's Island because, different mechanics, same game. Then they started coming out with kitschy things like Super Mario Sunshine, which, okay, sure. We got a couple new characters. The mechanics were okay. Great. Now we got Super Mario Odyssey. What was the fucking point of that game to throw a hat and take control of stuff? But you're doing it with a Mario IP. You could have done that with a completely different IP and been successful. Why?
The reason they did that is because they wanted a strong, known character. That's one thing that they do to a fault. Is they don't want to.
They don't want to risk like a launch lineup on like a new thing.
Exactly.
They want to give you like a familiar IP.
It's their flagship.
I'm not defending that choice.
Oh yeah, no. Well, and it's just that this company is one of the primary examples of a company not willing to create something new because they don't want to take risks in that aspect. Yeah. They'll use the same character because they know that character is pretty much immortalized at this point. There's no way they could possibly do damage to it until they do. Well, I mean, look at how many other IPs that Nintendo's created that they just don't use today, right?
Star Fox being one of them. Rest in peace, Star Fox fans.
I mean, seriously. I mean, like Star Fox 64 was probably one of the greatest Star Fox games, hands down.
Easily.
Like you could go back to the Star Fox that was on NES, but it's just not the same. Star Fox hit the pinnacle at 64. Now, when they did the Star Fox on GameCube,
Star Fox
it was
Adventures or whatever.
Yeah, Star Fox Adventures. You still got your Starfighter experience, but they wanted you to be more like Jet Force Gemini. Which, by the way, also another Nintendo IP that is just dead.
So, but how did they recover from that? They recovered from that by launching another Star Fox that was basically exactly like Star Fox 64, except for this time you could turn into a tank as well.
Nope, you could do that in Star Fox.
Was that in that one as well?
Yeah. That was the irony.
I don't remember that in 64.
Yeah, it was.
God, it's been too long.
There's just like
there
a couple.
There was
couple
pathing
levels
that they created in that. Okay. So if you took a certain planet path, you could get to be a tank.
Sorry, tangent.
That.
You think you never saw the tank? Did you know there's a submarine in the 64 version?
What?
Yes, there is one level, and I can't. It's the only way to get to it is on one of the asteroid levels. You have to go through. There's these rings that, as you go through them, you start spinning and going faster and faster, and you have to hit. I think there's like 10 of them. It's 8 or 10.
It's like a secret warp to
exactly.
a different level.
You go through all of them, and you warp to a water planet, and your objective is underwater. And so you are in a submarine underwater shooting torpedoes.
Yep.
And that is your ship that you're piloting.
I had no idea.
Like 80% of the people who have played that game have no idea that even exists.
Yeah.
And still, I still haven't been able to get.
The only reason
I can't.
It's
can't
very
control.
difficult. Yeah.
The only reason I knew that it exists is because I watched a Let's Play of it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this thing exists." I'm like, "What?
I saw it in a Game Informer.
Well, they brought
time.
it. They did a throwback in Adventures. So I mean, it was. Yeah. But where does Star Fox reside now?
I think he had a cameo in a completely different game on
Yes.
Switch a couple years ago. Is it?
Yep.
Like that's like one of the best Star Fox experiences in recent history.
I mean, the only other place he exists is Smash, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, and the only reason he's in Smash is because he was a prime character in Smash way before that.
Yep.
For
Original.
the 64.
He was
Yeah.
original.
So he just became a mainstay.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you asked anybody, like, if I went and asked like probably one of my younger siblings like who Star Fox was, they'd have no fucking clue.
No, they know him from Smash Brothers. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah. But they wouldn't know who he is. Like that's an IP they could do something with. That would feel refreshed and they could do something with. But no, they want to stay with Mario. They want to be. They want to stay safe.
Yeah.
Mario and Zelda. Those are the two.
They're
Well,
also-
and Zelda, admittedly, Zelda will continue being successful because they didn't pigeonhole themselves.
They actually came up with a unique way of they're able to rebrand it and recreate it every so often.
Well, not unique.
And it's part of the story. By doing that, they're able to have a completely different Zelda experience, and it still goes in line with their story.
And I will say, like, Nintendo are no saints. Like I like Nintendo, but I'm like a filthy casual. I'm not whatever.
I'm very much that way too.
So, like Nintendo are by far like no saints. Everything you've just said is like 100% true. I do really respect the new Switch era because they're taking a lot more risks.
Well, they've opened the market. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I mean, look at games like Dead Cells. Dead Cells is an insanely popular game because it was unique. The mechanics in it were solid. I mean, being a roguelike, there's tons of replayability. Like, you can't, for me, you can't go back and say Super Mario Sunshine had a lot of replayability. You can't go back and say that Super Mario Odyssey had a lot of replayability. I mean,
I think part of that, they have the games, they're taking more risks, is because they're bringing more attention to the games that they're platforming on the Switch. But they are also doing the same thing that they did with the Wii and the Wii U, where they have mountains and mountains of like worthless, unknown games. The shovelware,
yeah.
It's the first I'm hearing of that term.
Oh yes,
that's cool. That's a cool term.
It's piles of garbage that you use in a shovel and you just dump it in their store, and they're like $5-10 games.
Well, to be fair, they've been doing that forever.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong, but
if you go back and look at like somebody that collects like Nintendo 64 games and regular Nintendo games and Super Nintendo games, they have walls and walls of just hundreds and hundreds of games that nobody's ever fucking heard of.
Yeah.
So they've been doing that forever.
Yeah. But what they're doing now is they're
well, it's easier for them to do it because they have a marketplace like everybody else, which is electronic. I still won't ever forgive them for the Joy-Con incident, though. I mean, the fact that the TLDR, the short of it is that their Joy-Cons are precision manufactured, but the problem is that like first and second gen were just basically defective. They were guaranteed to break over a certain period of time, which allowed them to spend $70 to replace a pair of Joy-Cons, something you have to have with this console.
The Joy-Cons are like the detachable, like imagine a Wii remote but half the size and it gives you carpal tunnel. each one, it's like the ones that attach to the side of the actual physical Switch console, and you can pop them off.
Those are the Joy-Cons?
Those are the Joy-Cons.
Okay.
The thumbsticks
they made those so they break?
Well, the thumbsticks
we have
are
like
so...
3 pairs. I'm not looking forward to this. Those fucking things are a lot more expensive than I thought they'd be.
Exactly. The thumbsticks are so tiny that the electrical, like the graphite contact, it will like rub away the graphite inside. I believe that this is the leading theory on what happens with these, if I'm remembering correctly. Like basically it rubs away the contact graphite inside the Joy-Con, and it will eventually like start to drift, where it's like you'll do no input and it'll start to drift to one side.
Like Xbox 360 controllers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and, especially early controllers, like as they improved and released like Pro Series, they fixed a lot of that stuff because they recognized it was an issue. The problem is that it also occurs on the D-pad and really just any button set on those Joy-Cons, not just exclusive to the analog sticks. Which
the analog sticks are the worst ones.
Yeah.
I will say though, they've been doing that forever too. I'm looking at you, Nintendo 64 controller.
Yeah.
How many Nintendo 64 controllers can you pick up and the joystick?
The lipstick joystick, yeah.
And then you're like, well, fuck, I can't play anything. So then you go in there and buy another $60 controller in 1995.
That was literally a point of contention for me and Will back in the day because we argued over controllers.
It's like, I don't want that one. That fucking, what was it? The purple clear
Mad
Cat controller.
Yes. That piece of fucking shit.
Is Mad Cat still around?
Oh no,
no.
I was gonna say
they've been long gone.
I believe they got bought out by another third-party company. They still, I'm sure their factories are still producing hot garbage like everything else. But
I'm fairly certain that Mad Catz was bought out by Thrustmaster because Mad Cat was making joysticks up until a few years ago, actually, and I believe it was 5 or 10 years ago that they were bought out by Thrustmaster.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be shocked by that at all.
Thrustmaster, that's a fun name to say.
You would.
It goes along with Samus, anyway.
The instant you brought up
callback.
Thrustmaster, I was counting the seconds in my head before we got to that point. I knew it would happen.
5, 4. That's a great name.
He just he found his footing and leapt.
You're not the only one. I was actually excited. I was like, I'm waiting.
It's gonna happen.
But
It's a fantastic name. What?
Caleb had to put his foot down though, and that's what really mattered.
Yeah, busting balls over there. But so the new.
They're so fucking childish.
Video game companies right now, I think they're starting to get a new look on life. And you brought up Microsoft Studios. Mm-hmm. However, Microsoft Studios, I believe they bought Obsidian.
Yeah.
Was it Obsidian? It was one of those damn Elder Scrolls companies.
Obsidian did. I
think it was.
Microsoft bought Bethesda.
Yeah.
But they also.
No, they didn't. They haven't bought Bethesda yet.
I thought they did.
No, I think they bought Obsidian because there was a great article that came out in PC Gamer, I believe.
I was about to do it too.
I'm pretty sure they bought Bethesda because that's why there was the whole Bethesda Microsoft thing going on. That's why they put out all their games.
Microsoft owns ZeniMax, which owns Bethesda.
Oh, okay.
So yes, Microsoft does own Bethesda.
Well, Microsoft Studios bought one of those and I believe it was Obsidian. Yeah, because there was a great article that came out in PC Gamer where they were interviewing the president of Obsidian, and they were like, "Well, what kind of game do you want to make?" And he was like, "Well, it really just depends on what you're wanting my company to do." And they were like, "No, you don't understand. What kind of game do you want to make?" And he was like, "Well, that just depends on budgets." And they're like,
No.
Do
what you want to do.
We're Microsoft. What do you want to make? And that's when we got God, what the fuck was that game?
New Vegas?
Not New Vegas.
Doom.
New Vegas in space.
Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we got Outer Worlds.
Because Obsidian did New Vegas.
Well, that's the whole reason they couldn't do any of the new games.
Outer Wilds.
So,
there were two
games.
The Outer World.
Both of those games exist. There is a game called Outer Wilds, but it is not Outer Worlds.
Yeah, no,
I know one of them's hot garbage and the other one's actually really good.
The Outer Worlds is basically a clone of Fallout without the name.
Yeah. Outer Wilds is not a game in the sense of it's more of like an art piece. Mm-hmm. It's meant to be enjoyed for however long it takes you to play through it, and you get like a cool little story, and then it's got like a little philosophical message at the end of it, and then it's done. It's neat.
Like Journey?
It's neat. It's really cool. Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
It's neat. It's really cool. But then like after, you could probably go through and if you knew what you were doing, you could beat it in like probably an hour and be done with it.
My favorite thing though is like you're watching the fall of these big companies, and I'm waiting with bated breath for the fall of Activision, and I know it's coming. They've got 5,000 employees that just churn out a Call of Duty every fucking year.
Don't get me started on Vanguard,
and
man.
It's the same game with the same graphics, just something barely different, and it takes 5,000 people to turn that out.
Call of Duty's not bitch with, and not like EA Sports with their fucking FIFA,
it's
NFL,
the same
NBA every goddamn year.
Yeah, same
and
thing.
how much are they? And then immediately the year later, you go get them for what, like $4.99, $5.99 at like vintage stock.
Well, we were so there was a conversation me and James had one on our little trip yesterday that Rockstar announced that they were reprising the last 3 original games before. So you're going to see a remake of 3, a remake of Vice City, and a remake of San Andreas.
The PlayStation 2
That's
Grand Theft
cool.
No,
and it's fine, but they're going to charge you full price.
Yeah, they're going to charge you. It's going to all be in the same system and mechanics as GTA 5, which I stated before I even saw the article that that's exactly what they're going to do, because why reinvent the wheel? That's exactly what they're doing.
But at least it's an acceptable engine.
Oh, like I don't think. Yeah. But see, and that was the other thing. I was like, man, why would I want to see these 3 games for $60 a piece? Which is because that's what it's going to be.
Oh, they're not releasing them together.
No,
for $60?
They are individual. And
and
that's what I told James. I was like, man, if they would have released all 3 of those games for a solid $80. Hands down would have bought it.
Are you sure about? Because they're calling it the definitive trilogy. I didn't look at it, so I'm not sure.
According to the article I'd read, they're releasing them individually.
God.
Now, if they turn around, they change their mind on it, that'd be awesome. Because I would pay the $60 to $80 if I got all 3 and all the content that came with them.
Right.
Because Vice City actually had a DLC, I believe. I know San Andreas did not. Maybe it was before that era.
I don't even know.
I don't even remember Vice City having DLC.
No, you know what? No, 4 was the first ones that got DLC because they had the Ballad of Gay Tony and the Lost and the Damned.
That's right.
Yeah.
They were the first ones with actual DLC. So you're right. So if they included all 3 of those in the same game, because I mean they weren't, the 3 by no means was a long game.
No, it was so fun though. My God.
And Vice City was basically just an expansion for 3, just located in Miami instead of instead of New York. I think it was what it was.
Liberty City.
Yeah, Liberty City is New York.
Los Santos is LA.
Yeah, and then Vice City is Miami.
3 was great though. 3 was so.
I'll tell you what.
I just never played a game like that before. When I played GTA 3.
Again, I played 3 because of Will.
Mm-hmm.
I could not tell you what that storyline is about.
I couldn't either.
I could tell you what Vice City was about. Yeah. Vice City, you were basically Scarface.
Yeah.
And the only reason everybody was excited because they were introduced a chainsaw into that game. That's, that, and then it basically, and then San Andreas was.
You were a gangbanger.
Yeah, you were gangbanger going.
CJ. CJ with what is it? Grove Street.
Yeah.
The Grove Street gang, and you were basically. Yeah, for spoilers for anyone who hasn't played San Andreas, you're going through trying to get your gang's name back into get all the respect and everything that they used to have, and then it turns out one of the people in your gang was basically causing all of the problems and working with other gangs and fucking you over. Fuck you, Big Smoke. So again, spoilers on a like 20-year-old game.
Damn it, CJ, you missed the train. Sorry, that's the only.
The only thing that I remember about 3 is cheat codes and spawning tanks in front of the police station.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, that's right.
Oh man.
And then you had to back down that fucking little.
Yeah, but you could 180 the turret and start hopping.
Yeah, you could.
That was great
because every time you'd shoot, you'd go a little faster.
Yeah.
You could make a very strong argument about games, not just, but probably like GTA wasn't the only game to have like dozens upon dozens of cheat codes that were all freaking amazing to just screw around with. But they were definitely like the poster child for that kind of idea. I think you could make a very strong case that the popularity of that is what eventually like led the domino effect down to like a lot of microtransaction models we have now. But if we could go back to something like that, it would be amazing.
That's actually a really good. I hadn't considered
monetizing cheat codes, basically. Yeah.
And that's getting back to where we've come for full circle now. Is you don't need Now, of course, I can't really harp on this too much because I back Star Citizen, but you don't need long development times and super big companies to make good fucking games anymore. And that's unfortunately that's what they think. That's why you get 5,000 people that churn out a shitty game every fucking year.
I'm gonna bring up a good counterpoint to you. How many of you here have played Breath of the Wild?
It was great. Yeah.
Like Breath of the Wild was supposed to come out on the Wii U, I think, and it was like pushed back like 2 or 3 times, and it took like a 5-year development time. Like it took a very long time to come out. But there was a lot of passion that went in with that project, and that team did a fantastic job, and it just floored everybody when it came out. So I don't think it has to do it doesn't have to do with a short or a long development time. It just has to do with like
but I mean you
the
look
heart
at
and the passion in it.
You look at games like Cyberpunk 2077 that's got like a 15-year development cycle, right? Star Citizen has a 12-year development cycle so far. I mean, we're technically 9 years in active, or 12 years in active development, 9 years in full-fledged development. But they're trying to do something, right? Every bit of that game is like a cutting-edge technology as far as gamings go. So, like, they had to rework that entire CryEngine because back in the day, whenever they started engines, you were limited to like 500 animations. They have like 10,000 animations, and they had to work that into the game model. There's a lot of things that go.
CryEngine's great. Like if you go back to the original Far Cry for PC, I still think the water looks pretty cool.
And a lot of the server tech and everything that's been developed by CIG, you're seeing a new world now. Now, obviously, not the terrible graphics bug where it burns your graphics card down. I don't think that they were responsible for that.
So I've seen an explanation on that. Again, tangent. What happens is basically it magnifies whatever faults that your graphics card already has. So if you have a defective graphics card that normally isn't going to be stressed to the point of failure, New World will do that.
And Jay's 2 Cents did a good video on it.
Yeah.
What's actually going on is it's an unbound frame rate. Yep. So it just maxes out your graphics card.
You didn't have a limiter? Oh.
Yeah, now that's a problem.
My 3090 didn't have a limiter. Well, you don't have a 3090 now.
Yep.
I will say to counter argue a point of yours for Call of Duty. So as an example, it's actually 2 companies, right? It's been 2 companies since like 2003.
Treyarch and
so it started out Treyarch and Infinity Ward, because Modern Warfare series was Infinity Ward.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm thinking Sledgehammer was what
Sledgehammer took over whenever whenever Modern Warfare ended, and they started Advanced Warfare.
Right.
And then from Advanced Warfare, it went. I don't remember who did Ghosts. I don't think Sledgehammer did Ghosts.
It was a third. They had a third company for a while. They were alternating between the 3 different companies to give them all.
They only did one. They
3
only did
years to make a game.
They only did one cycle of it, sadly, because like games like Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3 were fantastic games. They had solid storylines. I will say, with Vanguard, with these last 3 games, with Modern Warfare, the remake, which isn't a remake, it's a prequel technically, and then with Cold War, all the development cycle was focused around building it into Warzone.
Yeah.
So all the blueprint systems, all that stuff is a way for them to continue to make money. And fuck if I've fallen into that. I've bought blueprints just to have guns so I didn't have to work for them.
I will say when they brought out Modern Warfare, like the rebranding of it, I really enjoyed it. And I really liked the multiplayer gameplay and everything like that.
I did too.
I suck. I absolutely am terrible at battle royale games. So I've played all of maybe an hour of Warzone, and I know if I put more time into it, I could do better. I'll just stick to multiplayer. I'm better at that.
Yeah, well, so Vanguard upset me because the inaccuracies have just become way too much.
Oh, like open bolt guns, like the Sten and their animations and the way they're firing and stuff. Yeah.
No, not just that. Not just that. Here, this is the basis of one of them, is that they put a foregrip on the Mosin as an attachable item, which, by the way, that's not done. Just can't do. not part of the body style of the World War II rifle. It was very simple carbine, or sniper rifle.
To be fair, if you had some extra wood and some screws, you could do it.
They loaded 50 cal into the Mosin.
That's not. No, go ahead and go. Don't try this at home, but go ahead and try it.
Just
pull it with a string.
Just several, and there's guns that don't exist in there.
And they've always played around and taken a lot of artistic license with the timelines and things like that.
Ever since Modern Warfare 3, all the firearms names of things that would exist have been just changed to be something made up.
Yeah, and that's because of licensing. It's because they no longer wanted to pay the money for the licensing, so they're like, you know what, we're just gonna call it something else, and it's gonna be the exact same gun with a different name. But they've taken a lot of license with the time frame of when guns were in development and when they actually were fielded and things like that.
I'm convinced nobody at Treyarch, or no, I'm sorry, at Sledgehammer understands how World War II happened at this point, because literally everything that you've seen in Vanguard didn't happen.
Well, we're also at a point in history, and this is another layer on top of it. We're at a point in history where it's almost all second and third hand.
Yep.
And almost all majority of it is third hand or more further removed, because how long ago was World War II now? Now all the people who have actually participated in it are on their deathbed or dying.
By the way, we've already been over 100 years for World War One.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
It is.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, when it came and went and never
not even acknowledged.
Yeah.
I never saw anything about it.
Well, I mean, you're in the age of internet research where somebody can Google something instead of picking up an actual fucking book.
You're in the age of internet research where you're actively changing history.
Yeah.
Wikipedia. Lock threads. Lock those threads.
The United States didn't go to the fucking moon, even though you can look at it. Goddamn. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
We
Yeah.
have this person.
I will say
that never existed. Tear down that statue.
With the upcoming changes and all that stuff, I did not buy Vanguard. I'm not gonna play Vanguard at all. The zombies mode looked like trash to me.
Yep. My favorite eras of Call of Duty have always been the Modern Warfare era,
present
where it's
or direct future.
Present, maybe a little bit into the future, with Modern Warfare. That technically it came out in 2012, I think, but it took place in 2017, so it was very, very near future.
At where current events were obviously being reflected in those. Right. I appreciated even Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3 because there was
Vietnam era and Cold War era.
Black Ops 1 was definitely, when they do historical ones and they get some accuracies correct, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, they talk about events that did happen and then make up some things that didn't happen but can very, very easily relate, right? Mm-hmm. And then you get into, like I said, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, where it's just slightly into the future, but those events are still directly tied to how things happened.
Right.
Mason, the numbers, just over and over again. So,
it's something there where they go through and they finagle a lot, especially in the more recent ones where they're just you're gonna have this machine gun in World War II that didn't exist for another 15 years.
yeah,
they do what they want. I will also say, countering my own argument, just playing devil's advocate here. Play with what's fun. If it's in the game, it's gonna be fun. Cool. But also, if they have a theme, they should try to stick within their theme and be consistent. So
yeah,
a little different. Both ends of the argument there.
Where I take issue with it is, you've got a big company that employs 5,000 people, because they do. Mm-hmm. And 90% of those guys work on one game at a time. It doesn't have to happen like that. You look at, God forbid, you look at MechWarrior 5. Okay? As big as a dumpster fire as that was when it launched, what they did was... And I don't know who made this decision. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was not Russ Bullock, because I've listened to that man talk. But when they made the mod editor or the mod generator, there is a mission editor in there, and it harkens back to old school game mission editors where you could make your own fucking missions, and it was for the layman. You could just go in there and do it. Mm-hmm. And it looks a lot like that, and that's one of the reasons why we got the Kestrel Lancers, which is a fantastic story, and they did that in 4 months versus 5,000 people plugging away. And I, honest to God, I think it's a lot of it is people making things more difficult so they keep their job. You see that every fucking day, especially in corporate life. I saw it every fucking day when I was working for 3M. Every goddamn day.
A lot of it's done that way intentionally for proprietary reasons. They do it because you have to do it this way at this specific company because this is how we will do it and how we've always done it, because they want it to be a very specific thing, because you can't just come in and take the knowledge that you learn and take it anywhere else, because it's only done there. And that's one for making it more difficult for job security, but also that makes it to where you can't take your knowledge anywhere else. It's specifically, it's proprietary to their practices.
That depends on where the business's home office, though, because the reason why a lot of startups have happened in the Silicon Valley area is because what you're talking about doesn't exist in the state of California. Like, there is that intellectual property, but if you have an idea for how to do something at one company, you can take it to another company or start your own company. Largely, it's not. California isn't like everywhere else.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but
for better or worse.
I'm just waiting for California to become just like Atlantis.
Yeah,
Arizona Bay.
Eventually.
But things don't have to be that hard.
No, they certainly don't.
And it's games like that show you that it's like, man, if they would have just given us a story like the Kestrel Lancers right from the get-go, that would have been a great game. Story makes the game, as far as I'm concerned.
But BattleTech doesn't exist outside of 3025.
MechWarrior 4 in a day, on regular mode. And that game had a lot of replayability. I mean, here we are. The game came out in 03, 04, something like that.
04.
And I'm still playing it today.
MechWarrior 4?
Yeah.
No,
MechWarrior 4 Vengeance.
It was, remember, we looked it up. It was 1999.
We've got to have to do this again.
I believe it
Vengeance.
was. I believe
we're gonna have to do this again.
Vengeance I know the original.
Mercs came out.
Yeah.
04.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, I mean, however long it was, it's 20 at least 20 years, and I'm still playing that game today.
2000.
Yeah, it's 2000.
November 22nd, 2000.
Yeah. There you go. 21 years later.
That was Vengeance.
And it's still a damn good game.
It is. The story's fun. The missions are fun.
Yeah.
21 years later, MechWarrior 5.
But instead, MechWarrior 5 launched with my
shit ton of
dad's
boring stuff.
Yeah, my dad's a secret clanner, and Comstar's keeping me so that I don't tell everybody that they're clanners, but I'm gonna beat Comstar and then not tell anybody that there's clanners because.
And when you're done with that mission, it's Jihad era.
Yeah. It's fucking
when you're
ridiculous.
done with that story, it's in the middle of the Jihad.
They should not have put a time table on there at all.
To be fair, HBS's BattleTech was the same way, but still, I mean,
I liked HBS's BattleTech. It just
fantastic.
didn't. And here's the thing: is they made all that canon, and then you get to Dark Ages, like, how does this fit in? They don't exist anymore.
Well, they just haven't put it in.
Right.
I mean, they still exist out there, but who knows what happened to them? Because
let's not assume anything.
Right,
yet, okay?
because
I mean,
they just came out with the deal where what's her name, Arano, actually went to the wedding.
The Fourth Succession War.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
She went to Melissa and Hans's wedding.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I think they just came out with it, or that came out with the source book for House of Rono. But yeah, they were there. So that was the last mention of them. But yeah, they are canon. Another game that had a fantastic. That game was developed on $2 million on that Kickstarter, and who knows how much else that.
Oh, the HBS one.
Yeah,
I find it amazing that it was like what, 24 hours, and it was fully funded, and it was like $500,000 in 24 hours, something like that.
I do believe we deserve a second one.
Well, so unfortunately,
take Crimson Skies instead.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're probably not.
Crimson Skies, fucking throwback, man.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're probably not because what's his name?
Well, I think unfortunately we're not because they actively said, like, they explicitly said they're not.
Yeah. What's his fucking name?
Jordan.
Jordan Weissman is a squirrel. There's a great documentary out there about the pod, those pods.
Yeah.
Where they're talking to his dad.
Yeah.
And whenever they were running FASA, there was a point where they were just willy-nilly with his fucking money, and his dad sat him down and he was like, dude, you have to do something. That's a really great documentary, by the way.
It is. That's the one where like his dad was basically just talking like, my son's this is a horrible businessman. He's like, oh, come on, Dad. Like, I think I was a little bit better than that. And it's like,
no.
Yeah.
But he runs harebrained schemes. So Jordan was like, yeah, I made this game and I'm done with it now.
Explains
like,
the name.
Oh, we really want another one. I don't know why you wouldn't, because it was widely successful.
That's a game that, by the way, deserves 100% comeback. By the way, is Crimson Skies.
Does it really?
I've
never played it.
So there was a release on the original Xbox, and it was basically what everybody wanted for X-Wing.
Yeah, I remember there was the airplane X-wing in that. Like, it had the wings on the back.
Steampunk airplanes, right?
And it was a fantastic game. Had online play and everything.
Oh, cool.
And it just I
wouldn't say flash in the pan, but it was very short-lived.
Oh, it was very I would say very flash, because
WizKids
made a clicks-based game on it, and you know how that's just what happens. Yeah. WizKids touches it and it dies, shriveled up and just took a shit.
Which is somehow they're still a company.
Because that's what happened to MechWarrior.
I know, but like the thing is like MechWarrior Dark Age was really fun. It was really fun. Like, it had its shortcomings, but I mean, if you weren't like a total BattleTech grognard going into it, because I wasn't at the time, I only knew it from the video games, didn't know they were connected, honestly. Yeah. But yeah, like when I was playing MechWarrior Dark Age, this was a lot of fun, but then as you start to get more into it and you're realizing, well, these units would never fucking work together. No. And yeah, like the whole grognard argument of like, I don't like how my color of paint dictates how good this unit is. And it's like, I can concede that point as well. But I
Games
think
Workshop.
But that's the thing is, like with most games, is that's just the flavor layer.
Yeah.
When you strip it down and you get down to the core mechanics, I think the Clicks games in general are just fucking cool. What a great idea, That's just me.
Certainly,
if nobody agrees, that's fine.
No. I agree with that. Like, certainly, no one has probably ever done that since, besides maybe X-Wing.
Yeah,
has done like a similar mechanic with their pilot dials.
Yeah.
Clicks games, unfortunately, people just inherently fucking hate them. I don't know why either. But I mean,
can you say? I mean, like HeroClix went.
HeroClix is still running fairly
Mage
strong,
Knight
but
went for a lot longer than
dead. Unfortunately,
Mage
but
Knight
it went longer than Dark Age, I thought.
No, Mage Knight actually died before Dark Age.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah. So Mage Knight was the first Clicks game that they did. And it ran fairly long, but they only had 2 solid releases, and then it died.
Oh, okay.
And then Dark Age just had 2 solid releases because it wasn't just Dark Age. It was Dark Age, and then they had
Age of Destruction.
Age of Destruction.
But they had a ton of expansions in between.
I mean,
I think they had like 7 or 8.
They had the Force packs, so they had like the starter pack that came with the Crimson Hawk and the Marauder 2. They had the Solaris 7 pack. They had the Ares packs.
But that wasn't Dark Age. That was Age of Destruction.
That was Age of Destruction, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I believe Dark Age was first, and then Age of Destruction came out.
Yeah.
Because Age of Destruction had all the updated mechs that had all the really clean looking mech types and all that stuff. It wasn't like the cartoonish fucking Atlas that came out of the Solaris 7 pack.
It wasn't Mad Max BattleTech.
Yeah.
God, I fucking that is the most apt description I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, because Age of Destruction didn't have the agromechs. That was Dark Age.
Yeah, I've got barbed wire on my fucking Atlas. It costs 9 million.
Well, I mean, like, with respect, I mean, there was the whole thing is centralized inside the Republic of the Sphere, right?
Right.
And the Republic of the Sphere was largely demilitarized compared to the rest of the Inner Sphere historically. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
because
if you have an agromech, you can strap on, like, an SRM box,
Yeah,
you know,
can
because
see.
you don't have your family Centurion anymore.
Yeah, you can see how well the Paladins did against fucking Clan Wolf, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like, I have one mech to protect the entire planet.
Which also, speaking
I've got
of which,
a galaxy.
when you really evaluate all the clan mechs and stuff like that, like there wasn't a whole lot of clan mechs in Age of Destruction or Dark Ages when you really went back and looked at like the click stuff.
Oh God, I mean there were, but like
there weren't. Yeah.
I mean you had like when
there's a Widowmaker,
the Falcon, is it Falcon's Prey expansion came out, then you had a lot more of them, but I don't think there was enough.
No.
And of course they were mostly Jade Falcon mechs, and they were like the totem mechs, like the Ger Falcon and the Shrike and stuff.
You want to know one of the biggest things that I fucking hate about the Dark Age? I mean, literally, I just hate it right now. We had a BattleTech cartoon, and Catalyst did the greatest thing in the world. How to retcon something.
That is how you freaking retcon something that shouldn't exist.
Yeah, it's like, fucking propaganda, right?
Yeah.
They retcon that. Then you get into the Dark Age, which was driven by WizKids, and you get the fucking Paladins and one mech per planet. And you know how they retcon that? They're like, oh yeah, Devlin Stone was brainwashed by the fucking word of Blake. That's why all that shit happened.
Hoping we wouldn't bring that up again.
And it's like, what the fuck?
But you really like talking about it so much.
What the fuck?
I mean, it's cool.
Waste of a character.
Mech Warrior Jesus.
This is the biggest waste of a character.
I've not read Hour of the Wolf. I'm guessing that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, like, you find out that he was programmed by word of Blake to be this dude, and they're like, yeah, that's just going to make everything...
So
all the continuity errors go away.
When Tucker
Skeletor
Hollow brings
laugh
him out of cryogenic sleep in Shattered Fortress, I think is when he's he's woken up before that. I think he's woken up in Shattered Sphere or something like that. Some source book that came out before Shattered Fortress.
Hang on, hold that thought. James, what did you do with the Grognard button? I feel like we need to.
Yeah.
Look, all I'm saying is like, it's interesting, you know, actually, when you read those two source books, you're like, okay, so he was cryogenically frozen. This is kind of cool. He's woken up now. He's catching up. Tucker's like furious with him, and he's pretty much just like, dude, chill the fuck out. What's going on? And then Shattered Fortress, you know, he's like, okay, let's get to work and save the sphere, right? And then everything after Shattered Fortress is where you realize it seemed to me like they had taken this character, Devlin Stone, and they had built him up, and then everything after Shattered Sphere was just like, man, fuck that character. We don't need that character.
We've got this guy. He's got fucking Jesus armor. Yeah, he's inbred. It's fantastic. You're gonna love this.
Yeah. Let me spin an idea off of all of you. So, if you have, let's take another popular sci-fi series that is like notable for like its eras, so to speak. Star Wars.
Okay.
You have the original trilogy, you have the prequel trilogy, you have the sequel trilogy. Each one of those, in the way that they're written, they are written with a definitive beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
It has a conclusive story arc for all of its characters, and it ties up all those loose ends. I feel like BattleTech's eras are a little bit different because they're written into the beginning, and the middle is left open-ended because you're supposed to experience that yourself. Right. But that causes problems when you try and advance the timeline, like you were saying.
I hadn't actually put it in that, like framed it up that way. But yeah that's actually a really cool way to put it.
It's also driven by the same problem of, well, I'm WizKids. Well, I'm FASA. Well, I'm this company. I'm this company.
That's also part of it too.
We're still the same human beings,
right?
It's like Star Wars.
But you've got a different daddy.
Exactly.
That
like Star Wars
you to do money.
Keeps whipping you in different directions.
Well,
you put them on bases, and you don't make them 6mm. You make them whatever we tell you to do. God damn it.
Yeah.
I mean, you make them whatever I tell you. God damn it, Catalyst.
If I want a 12 inch mini that's a God Atlas, that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah. So like,
I mean, yeah.
all of the Star Wars trilogy. That's a good point, though, James. Like all the Star Wars trilogies, like I know the prequel and the original trilogy were technically written by George Lucas, but it was such a different team that went into it. Like that's why they were so vastly different.
But there's continuity in those.
There's still continuity in them, and it's
you
still,
can see the dispatch with continuity whenever you go over to the Disney side.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like that's why that's such a good point. Is there are so many different takes on where to take the BattleTech franchise that we're constantly pulling back to center to reinvent, so to speak, if that makes any sense. So I will say, and I'm not crapping on BattleTech, I love BattleTech, that's why I'm sitting at this damn table, but I will say that is probably one of the more frustrating things about the whole history of the franchise is exactly that, is like it feels like very stagnant to have to be restarting every time you want to advance the timeline, you know?
Yeah.
Plus, you know, there's a lot of people who just refuse to believe that anything past 30, 67 or so exists. So, and when we put it like we have in the last like 2 minutes, I can't really blame them, honestly. So.
No, I mean, you can't. I can blame them for Skeleton King characters. I mean, we've had Skeleton. I mean, Victor was a Skeleton King. I mean, let's not. But he was well
but
written.
we don't have to take that to a philosophical extreme.
No, but he was well written.
Yeah.
This new
one's fucking
not.
talk bad about Victor, I'm leaving.
This new one's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll shit on Victor and I don't even know who he is.
Victor Steiner Davian. He's the son of Hans and Melissa Davian. He took over the FedCom, and he went off to fight the clans, and his sister,
His sister is everything wrong with the Inner Sphere compiled into one person.
Yeah. Victor had his
sister's Cersei.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only she didn't bang her brother. She made a genetic clone of her and her brother because he wouldn't bang her. That's
Don't fuck me, well fuck you.
And then
Do it myself.
And then spoiler alert, he kills her.
Shocker.
Yeah, shocker.
Well, someone had to.
Yeah, that was a bad deal. That was one of the best chapters of that entire book.
I guess.
It's better than being absorbed into another group.
We're going to reload, I guess, real quick, and then we're going to come back and play some BattleTech.
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
Yep. You guys have a fantastic night.